Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper and independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. And today I have for you a different kind of video. This is more of a tutorial video instead of a craft technique video. I decided to spotlight the Stamparatus. This is a stampin' platform that Stampin' Up brought out a little while ago. It's not new, it's been around for a little while, but I had some customers who either had this and didn't know how to use it or were sitting the fence because they weren't sure what they could use it for. So I decided to do a little product spotlight on the Stamparatus. So I'm going to talk about that tonight and show you a few different ways to use it. So this lovely little booklet comes with a Stamparatus, so it gives you some instructions. And the first thing I want to show you is the base. This is a magnetic base right on it, so they won't wash off. You do want to use a light cleaner on this, something like our Stampin' Mist or baby wipes are fine, no harsh cleaners, because it comes with two of these plates with the hinges on them, and if you use too harsh of a cleaner, they can actually kind of take the finish off some of these grid plates. It's hard to see on camera, but there are grid lines on these plates, and so you don't want to wipe them off. So your base platform, you have two plates with hinges. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And it also comes with a piece of foam. This is for using with photopolymer stamp sets. You do not need this with red rubber cling stamps because they have that cushion built in, but you will need this with photopolymer stamps. So, and we do have a couple other accessories you can order. We have a deluxe foam mat, which is thicker than this one. I do not personally own that, but it is available if you like it. And we also sell a pack of the grid paper. So you can see there's lots here, and this is great for using underneath your projects in case you're stamping off your paper. And it also has the grid lines and the rulers built right on, so very handy to have for projects. One other thing I want to show you really quick before we get started with actual stamping techniques is I mentioned this was magnetic, and we have storage space on the bottom for two silver bar magnets. So here and here. Now you might notice that these are not silver colored. These are the actual silver bar magnets. However, what I have done is taken some black duct tape and just covered it. I cut a piece a little bit longer than the bar and folded it in half. This gives me a little extra, it's almost like a handle sort of, a little extra to grab because I don't have a lot of fingernails, and so sometimes trying to pry these magnets up because they are super duper strong was a challenge. And so I heard a tip from other demonstrators that said just add a little duct tape or washi tape. Some people just put two like little handles. I found washi tape ripped off, so I went with duct tape, and it might not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it sure is functional. And I mentioned that they were strong, and this is the other thing that's handy to have these little kind of grabbers on. These magnets will slam together, so if you're not careful, they will pinch you. I've been pinched myself because they are a super strong hold. I don't know if you can see, they're kind of fighting me here. So be very, very careful. I've actually heard some consultants, really, did you hear that? They were slamming together, have actually drawn blood when they have had their magnets slammed together. Me, I've just had a really solid pinch, so I just like to warn people, be careful. I don't want anybody shedding blood over Stampin' Up. So, as I said, they store right here, and I'm going to keep one on either side of my table as I'm working here, and hopefully that way they won't slam together on camera. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I will show you a couple different techniques. I have 5 techniques I want to show you today. So this first stamping project is photopolymer, so I'm going to use my Stampin' foam here, and then I'm going to put my paper on top, and I'm going to use my plate. I only need one at the moment. It is totally up to you how you want to hold your Stamparatus. You can have it with the hinges at the top and the side, or you can flip it this way if you like. When I first got it, I typically used it like this. Now I find myself using it like this because that way my logo is right side up. Totally up to you. So I'm going to show you this is the project that I'm going to make with the piece. I'm not going to actually put the card together tonight, but I wanted you to see what I intended to make with the panels that I'm stamping. So I have a panel that I pre-colored. This is blending brushes, so I just took 3 different colors of ink and blended it together. And I could start in the corner like this. I've decided I'll show you that in the next technique, but I'm going to center this more or less and snug it right up to the top. And now I know I'm going to have a little room with the stamp that I'm using, so I'm going to put my magnet down here at the bottom to keep my paper in place. So what I'm going to do next is take my Photopolymer stamp. This is from the Welcoming Woods stamp set. It is one of my favorite in the holiday catalog. I'm a sucker for pine cones and trees and a couple other things, but I really like how this set looks. So I'm going to lay my stamp face down as if I already had ink on it on my paper, and just line it up where I want it. And now I'm going to swing my panel shut. Sometimes I refer to these as doors, whatever you want to call it. Now, sometimes the photopolymer is sticky, so you might have to readjust your paper. That's why I specifically lined it up with the grid line. And that way, if it moves, I know exactly where I had it. Depending on the project, sometimes I'll take pencil marks and just kind of outline on either side so I know where my paper needs to go back. Also, another little tip, when I put ink on my projects, I'll try shifting over here so you can see better, I find this panel slants down a little bit. So I like to have something underneath this, like an ink pad or really even a block. I'm going to put this clear block in the middle. Usually I use an ink pad, but I want to see if this is a little bit less distracting, that you can see what I'm doing. And this way it just keeps this panel level, and I'm less likely to get extra ink all over the place. And I am known for getting ink all over things. My fingers are inky from some work I was doing earlier, so the less ink I have floating around, the less likely I am to ruin projects. So I'm going to stamp directly here. Now, one great thing about the stamp platform is that if you get your project and you stamp, you might not get the greatest image. Of course, that looks pretty good. But say your image didn't come out perfectly. You may have had some gaps in the trees. No problem. Because your stamp is not going to move and your paper is snugly in place with your magnets, all you have to do is come back and re-ink that stamp and come back and do it again. Now, I recommend personally, don't take your fist and pound on it. You don't want to press down and kind of distort the image, but I like to take either the flat of my hand, or I kind of prefer the side of my fist, and I just gently apply pressure all over the image without smushing it down. And then look at that. I have this beautiful image. So, and I'm going to turn it into this card when I'm done. But like I said, a great option if you're a little shaky with your stamping, or sometimes you don't get the best ink coverage on a stamp, having a stamp platform like this just opens up so many more possibilities for you. And even the best of us stampers who've been stamping for 20 years or more don't get even ink coverage on their stamps all the time. All right, so next we're going to move on to another technique. So normally I would just wipe my stamp off before I peeled it off the block, but you don't need to see me cleaning things all night. You want to learn how to use your Stamparatus. So I don't have any ink right now on that platform, so that's okay. Now I'll show you how to use a red rubber stamp with it in a slightly different way. So first of all, I'm going to take my foam off because I don't need that, because this rubber cling stamp, which is a good man, it has this foam built right in. So I don't need extra cushion. I've got exactly what I need right here. So for this one, I'm going to make this card, and we're going to stamp directly on this rectangular panel in 2 different colors of ink. And so this is a way to show you a 2-plate technique. think you'd like to see me stamp on one that doesn't have the image on it already. So here we go. For this one, I'm going to snug it up into the corner. I'm going to take my magnet, and because I know I want my image here at the bottom with my relaxing fellow, I'm going to put my magnet here at the top, and I'll switch that in a little bit. So I'm going to bring my ink pads over. I want to stamp my fellow in basic gray. First of all, it would help if I closed my door there. Ink him up. Press. Sometimes you have to give a little more pressure if you're real close to the corner. That's why sometimes it's easier to work out in the middle, but it can also be a little more difficult to position your paper. So it's pretty close to being perfect, but I want to add a little more ink there for him. Okay, much better. Now, he looks great snoozing away in the sun, but I want an image, or I want a sentiment to go with my image. So what I'm going to do is leave my paper snugged in here, move my magnet, and I want this sentiment to be up here at the top corner. But I've got the guy here, so what should I do? Well, I'm going to take my other panel, put it in the hinge at the top, and close it this way. And so now all I need to do is grab my second color of ink. I'm using a couple different shades of gray here, so. And then, just like that, I have my panel ready to go. Now, depending on your project, you can mass produce pretty quickly. A 2-step panel like this works very quickly, and I'm going to show you in a little bit how to use all 4 plates to mass produce cards very, very quickly. All right, so now I'm going to get these stamps out of the way, and we will move on to the third technique, which is one of my favorites. It's something I've wanted to do for a while. It's called hinge stamping. Excuse me. But I hadn't tried it out until I actually came to do this tutorial. But this is a fun one, because we are going to make use of the hinges to do some repetitive stamping here. And I wanted to show you also that we don't have to use full-size ink pads like this. You can use your Stampin' Spots. The Stampin' Spots come in either paper pumpkin kits, or they are available in the catalog from time to time. So what I'm going to do here is bring back that mat, because I'm back to photopolymer, I think, for the rest of my projects. I'm going to again snug this up to the top, but keep it in the middle. I don't want it too close to the edge. And I'm going to put my magnet here at the bottom to keep that in place. I'm going to grab my sentiment. This is from the Ornate Thanks set, and I'm actually using the thanks and then a smaller line that says ever so much. So first up, I'm going to take my larger sentiment and line it up. I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the top, and I only need 1 plate for this. So let's see, I think that's straight. I was a little crooked earlier when I was working on this, and I always forget to close that panel door. There we go. And like I said, that photopolymer wants to stick, so you might need to adjust your paper before you get started. Now I'm going to take my Stampin' Spot, and as far as applying ink goes, this is the same as what you've seen me do twice already. Just a little bit of ink. Make sure I get a good coverage there, although I can add more if I need to. Close. Now, what I need to do is lift this panel, lift it straight up, and move it down 1 hinge. Come back. Ooh, not throw ink everywhere. Pardon me. Try that again. Re-ink my stamp. Close. And again, lift up, move down a hinge. And so this is giving me perfect spacing in between my words. Now for this card, I am using all the same color ink. You could use multicolors if you want a rainbow of thanks. You could use a different color for every thanks that you do. Or you can make an ombre effect, either with different colors of ink, excuse me. Or you could stamp, just move down a hinge and stamp again without re-inking. And let's see, there we go. So look at that. Look at all those beautiful thank yous lined up, right? But now I want to add a little something extra. So first of all, I'm going to put my Stampin' Spot away before I throw it anywhere else. And I don't have to switch plates, but I'm going to just for the sake of moving on a little quicker. Now, I have my paper lined up in the same position, but I want to add a line underneath each of the thanks. So this time I'm going to add my magnet up there at the top. And the trickiest part of this one is the writing is a little small and I'm prone to stamping upside down. But I have that stamp there. Actually, I'm going to move my magnet to the bottom just while I do this top one. Give myself a little more room. There we go. And again, readjust my paper. But this is so handy to have such equidistant images so quickly. So this is fun, and you don't have to just stick with words. You could use it for images. It would take the right kind of card, but I could think of balloons perhaps. And you could also do, you don't have to do up and down like vertically. You could actually use the hinges the other way. You just kind of have to think about it a little bit, but you could actually do them across the page as well. Now I'm going to move that other magnet out of the way. And so you get the idea with the hinge stamping. But this is just such a unique idea. I love it. And there are other stamp platforms out there, but I've not seen another one that does this without having to move the stamps every time. So just, this makes it so easy. All right, and just like that, beautiful panel. And again, when I'm finished, all I have to do is add a couple little pieces of designer series paper and cardstock, and I have a beautiful card ready to go. Now, the next technique is that mass producing I was talking about, using multiple plates. So I mentioned that these plates, we have 2 plates that come with the Stamparatus. However, that gives you 4 stamping surfaces because each plate has 2 sides. So for this, I wanted to show you how you use those plates to mass produce cards. And again, you could do it 2-step, but I'm going to show you how quickly and easily you can make a card like this using all 4 of your stamping surfaces. All right. And I've got a little moisture here on my Stampin' plate. I want to get out of the way. Okay, so next, I'm going to use my Hydrangea Haven set. And so I have 4 different images. I have a floral image, and then 2 stamps to fill in that floral image, and then a greeting. So I'm going to get all those stamps ready to go. Now, my personal recommendation is if you're going to do a project like this, grab a piece of scrap paper to start your stamping on. I'm going to use a piece of Whisper White so that you can see very clearly what I'm doing, but if I were doing this on an actual project, I would use scrap paper, line everything up, and then start my stamping. So, I'm going to bring my magnets in. I know where my image is going to go, so I have room along the sides. So step 1, I'm going to put my floral outline image there, and then bring that over. I do have this snugged into the corner nicely. So I'm going to start with Evening Evergreen. Just going to give myself enough room to work here. And press this down. Next, I want to fill in my hydrangea blossom. So I'm going to take some fresh freesia ink and my little stamp. So I'm going to line that up, and instead of using the same plate here, I'm going to bring in my top plate. Bring that down, ink that up, a little press. Next, I want to fill in my leaves. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to flip this top plate and now line up my leaf stamp, just like so. And you can see I've got a stamp here on one side and then the stamp below the plate on the other. Soft succulent ink for my leaves. Press. And last but not least, I want a sentiment. So I'm going to take this stamp, or this plate, flip it over. I'm going to readjust my block a little bit. And this is the tiniest sentiment stamp ever, I think. My little thank you right in there. And some Highland Heather ink. And just like that, there's what I want to mass produce. So now, you might be thinking, well, that didn't go together super quick. Now it will, because here's how this works. Now that I have everything set and ready to go and all my inks are opened, I'm going to take a new piece of cardstock and turn my plates over to where I started. And then here is where the mass producing goes a lot faster. If you're thinking about it, if you were to do this traditionally, say I wanted to make 20 cards, I would have to do 20 panels of white, 20 of the floral stamps. Then I'd have to go back through that pile of 20 and add the purple, and then add the leaves, and then add the sentiment. So that takes a lot of time going back and forth with all those ink colors and all those different panels. Now I can focus on one panel and do all the stamping and filling in all at one go. So here we go. Ready? There's one. Color number 2. Flip my plates. This is really great if you have a picture with scenery, like a mountain and deer and water, and things can go together really quickly with that. But just like that, look how fast I put that together. And if I want to make 20 of them, I can roll right through that. And then I can clean everything all up at once, and I'm ready to go. So one more technique to show you this evening. I'm just closing up my ink pads before I throw something in it. And I'm very quickly going to clean off one of my plates. Move my magnets out of the way. And then I'll show you that last technique, and we will be done for the evening. Okay. Just going to dry this really quickly to make sure my stamp wants to stick. Now the final technique comes in handy if you work with die cuts or punches frequently. Because sometimes the trickiest thing is lining up your image inside of your die cut. So what I'm going to do is teach you how to use the negative to properly line up your image. So I have a stitched rectangle. I'm going to snug this up to the top. And now I have this flirty flamingo rectangle that I want to stamp and have kind of offset above my image. So I'm going to use my magnets to hold this in place. And now what I can do is take the image that matches that die cut, and I can line it up perfectly within the negative from the die cut that I cut out. Just like this. And then close my panel here. A little bit of ink. And then, make sure that's not in the way there. A little press. Oop. And it's actually perfectly laid in there. I just didn't quite get enough pressure on the bottom. So, little more pressure this time. I think I found the soft spot in my table again. This happened earlier. There we go, much better. My magnet might also be a little in the way too. And look at that. I have my image perfectly inlaid with my template piece or my negative piece. And now I can come back and layer it with dimensionals and add some twine, and I have a perfectly lovely card with a very unique effect. I just have to go back and finish the inside. All right, so that is your Stamparatus tutorial. I hope you enjoyed learning more about what the stamping platform does. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any and all questions. You can visit my website for more information at thefaithfulstamper.stampinup.net. If you have a want to see the catalog in person, I'm happy to send you one if you don't already work with a demonstrator. Just reach out to me either through the comments on this YouTube channel, and please feel free to subscribe. I love having new subscribers who want to learn how to craft along with me. Or you can hop over to Facebook to The Faithful Stamper and find me there. I post videos twice a week and do 2 Facebook Lives a week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the Stamparatus, and I hope you'll come back and visit with me again soon. Take care and happy crafting.